is the ultimate dead man switch. You know, might keep you on this planet a lot longer because you've got it and haven't used it. So,
do you have any theories as to how Virginia was unalived?
No.
I mean, my theory is pharmacide, whereby, you know, they put a lot of pressure on her with the black ops, the psyops campaigns, and she increasingly took medication. And I think in her autopsy, they'll find a cocktail of big pharma drugs.
There's a terrifying scene in the movie. I think it's Michael Collins. Is that the one with George Clooney in it? With two guys who are hitmen who show up to a guy's room and take care of him. And after I watched that, I thought, it's so easy. If you're a pro, you know, you can make it look like nothing. They inject you with something, makes it look like you had a heart attack. You know, coroner goes, I don't know, could, you know, looks like a heart attack to me. Or you get the Clinton coroner who's like,
Rami Malek,
like tick 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 tick, like whatever it lands on is what he says the cause of death was.
Rami Malek, what a guy! He, Rami Malek, folks. If you're not familiar with the hashtag Clinton body count, he is the coroner who Bill Clinton's mom unalived someone when she was working in the medical profession. Some kind of mishap occurred, and Rami Malek came in and gave them whatever cause of death they deemed fit to clear the way for her not to be held liable. And they owed him for the rest of his life, apparently. And he came in and just, it doesn't matter what, you could be shot. He would say you were drowned if the Clintons wanted him to say you were drowned. Yeah. It was literally that insane.
It was the best investment the Clintons ever made. Of all the money that they stole, of all the people having a dirty coroner in your back pocket is like having Marty Byrde, who owns a crematorium. You know what I mean? It's like the equivalent of that. So yeah.
All right, let's go over to the other big one in the news then, which is the Diddy trial, which has just started.
Yeah.
We saw pregnant Cassie has got up there. And what is your gut telling you on this one?
I think he's going down. I think he is, you know, I think these guys are valuable until their antics are made public to everybody. And then, you know, you can't run a sexual blackmail entrapment operation when everybody knows that you used to run one, everybody knows that you're in that business. It works the best when nobody knows that you're actually doing that. So he's of no use to them at this point, right? You're not going to go to, you know, let's say he gets out and they've found not guilty. What are you going to do? Continue him in this role of having parties and getting people in compromising situations and things like that? Like, no, nobody's going to be that stupid to walk into that. So so he has no value to them. So I don't see them bending over backwards to save him. I mean, I guess it depends on who's on the tapes. You know, if it is what has been rumored to, you know, and it is, and I obviously have no way of knowing this, but you start hearing about some famous politicians, we'll just put it that way, that were at the party. Well, then that changes things, because depending on how high level that person is, maybe they have a vested interest in this not going to where it goes. And maybe they make some phone calls and they've got some connections in judges. And we know about judges. It's just as easy to buy a judge as it is to buy a scientist, to buy a climatologist or whatever, right? So they're for sale. And in some cases installed specifically to make things go a certain way when they need to. So I guess I should say, I think he's probably going to go away for this, But I have to also recognize that depending on the quality of the content that he has collected, that may be a variable to consider, because if he's got Barack Obama on video, then that's a guy who can make a couple phone calls and all of a sudden things look very different. So I think that that's something like, I don't know the extent of what the footage shows, but I think that has to be taken into consideration too. I mean, if it's just a case of this guy like to beat up women and we've got him on camera beating the hell out of Cassie in a hallway, if that's the extent of it, he's going to get convicted. But if it has to do with all the other stuff and it starts to get dangerously close to protected people, then all bets are off, because it's just going to vary based on what's in the content.
Yeah, because they're going after him for some bigger charges, criminal enterprise and human transportation. So there's a lot more to prove, isn't there, than those individual incidents? They're like part of a pattern to indicate that he's running a criminal enterprise.
Yeah, and as you know, it's like there you have to prove quite a few things. If you can prove it, it's really bad for you. You know, you start getting hit with like RICO charges and things like that. That's the bazooka that they bring out. But they also have to prove it. And you ask yourself, would they have the audacity to bring all these charges in such a obviously public case if they didn't have the goods on him? And that, you know, listen, I'm making an assumption on that, but I would assume that somebody would say, we're not prosecuting this case, we're not doing this in front of the media and TMZ and the Daily Mail and all this stuff. We're not going to do this unless we are certain that we are going to win. And the only way we're going to win is that I need to know that we've got all the evidence on this guy and I got to see it. And then at that point, you would like to think that, right, that they have a strong case, because otherwise you're going to look incredibly stupid when you lose this case. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, the amount of charges that they've brought, it's. But again, they could also play that game of like, we bring 1 million, we stack all these charges up, and then you start to plea down to a more reasonable amount, and then we get you and get that magnificent conviction rate that the feds are always talking about.
So there's been some seismic posturing in geopolitics from your leader in particular, and certain other world figures. We saw the Zelensky-Trump sit down just go completely viral. I mean, you know, we've got this continuation of wars, Orwellian non-stop wars from the various criminal political dynasties in your country, the crime families, and then Trump comes in and, you know, I'm the peace president. I'm going to shut everything down. What do you make of him? Because it's like one day he says one thing, the next day he says something complete opposite. He has open dialogue with Russia, which, you know, many commentators such as Scott Ritter, Larry Johnson, etc., think is a good thing. And one day he's with Israel. Apparently this week he's not with Israel. So it's like he's all over the place. Is it just pure chaos, or is this some kind of calculated strategy?
I would be remiss if I didn't remind the audience that he is in the World Wrestling Federation Hall of Fame. Okay. It is really tough to know what's real and what's a character. What's this persona? As you said, he says one thing one day, he changes his mind, says something different the next day. And I would say pay less attention to what he says and more attention to what he does. I'm concerned about his Chabad Lubavitch ties, which ties him to Putin, which ties him to Netanyahu, which ties him to Zelensky. They're all part of this group. This is a really dangerous club. So part of this feels like pro wrestling to me. When he comes out and says, I'm ditching Netanyahu, he's not a good guy. We all know that. We see what Netanyahu is. He's the guy who brings his dirty laundry when he comes to stay at the White House so he can have the White House staff do it for him. He's a scumbag of extraordinary proportions and one of the most dangerous people out there. So you cheerlead when you hear Trump say he's going to move away from Netanyahu. You go, finally, thank God, right? But I know that there's more to this. It feels like theater, and so I'm hesitant to get. I try not to get too high or too low with the guy, because he can really frustrate you, and I try not to allow him to do that, because he's the ultimate, and then he'll troll somebody, and he'll make a comment about somebody, and you'll go, he's so likable. Like I was thinking the same thing. He calls Nancy Pelosi a old drunk, lunatic or something, and you go, yes, that's what we. So there's moments where you feel very connected to him, because he'll say the things that you're thinking. But man, I have real doubts about him. My major concern is his technocratic, the Peter Thiels and the Sam Altmans and the Larry Ellisons. These guys, these hardcore technocrats are the ones that scare me this time. Last time it was John Bolton, who was trying to stir up war, and all the hardcore Ziocons. Those were the guys that made me nervous in Trump's first administration. Now it's all the Silicon Valley technocrat guys that are running the AI systems and are asking for, and are getting, $500 billion being announced in the first couple of days of Trump's administration. Like, we've got to be focused on what they're doing, building out a digital prison around us too. All right. So it's like, it's when the election happened, I described it to people close to me as a choose your own adventure. It's like, if you when you read the book, you either get the Kamala Harris version, you get that presidency, which is more diversity, more insanity, more open borders, more of that. We didn't get that. We got a different one. Is it better? No, it's just different. It's Trump using his technocrats to start World War III in the Middle East, following the lead of Israel. It's like, which do you prefer? It's like, God, I mean, maybe the tranny story time. At least it won't be World War III. So I'm very skeptical of Trump for obvious reasons. He's a pathological liar, but he's entertaining. He's the funniest president ever. And that counts for something, because this is a clown show. And so you've got to kind of enjoy as the George Carlin quote, when you're born in this world, you get a ticket to the circus. When you're born in the United States, you get a front row seat. So that's how I feel right now.
Right, folks, we're halfway through our interview with Charlie Robinson. If you've got any questions about the club, the cabal, the elite, the octopus of global control, please put them in the chat. And I would be curious, Charlie, to know what you have been researching since we last spoke.
Well, I haven't really been researching. I do the research for my episodes, but what I've been focused on is on January 1st, I bought Activist Post. Activist Post is an independent news website. It's been around for 15 years. I had been a contributing writer there from time to time. And it's one of my favorite sources of news. I love Zero Hedge and I love Activist Post. And the guys reached out to me last summer and asked if I would be interested in taking over Activist Post and buying it from them and becoming the editor. And because they wanted to do something else. And I said, no, but I thought about it for a while, and I wound up saying yes. And we rebuilt the site and launched it on January 1st. So it's been around for 15 years. It's under new management now. We added a podcast section. We added an activism section and crypto. And so there's a lot going on over there. So I'll tell you what, my research has been reading the articles that we republish on Activist Post from all these brilliant journalists around the world that are talking about what's really going on out there at great peril. And I'm proud to republish them. So if anyone's looking for additional places to start, if there's a topic that's interesting you in the news, there's a pretty good chance we've got it over at Activist Post. And I encourage people to go over there and just add that to your media sources. Add that to that's another website that you go and check maybe every other day to see what's cooking. So,
question from Illumonic. Trump said we would invest in being the best with AI and crypto. What do you expect to happen?
Well, I think that they're moving towards a Bitcoin strategic reserve, or at least some form of state level ownership of Bitcoin. That would be huge, because when you've got the magic printing machine, you can just print fiat currency into existence and use it to buy Bitcoin if you're the government. I know there's some limitations on that. It has to be sort of like dollar neutral, but that's coming. And his relationship with Sam Altman for AI and Larry Ellison is, Trump says he wants it to be the best, but what does that mean? I mean, we're moving into a very, potentially dangerous time with the artificial intelligence component. And you have to ask, I mean, I start thinking like, do they come back in time to unalive Sam Altman in the Terminator movies? Is that how I'm remembering it? Because it kind of feels like in Terminator 2, the guy who builds the robots, because it feels kind of like we're getting to this place where you have to be very careful who's in charge of these companies. And I don't think Trump has good judgment. I don't think he's ever really had good judgment on the people that he picks. And I think Larry Ellison and Sam Altman are part of this World Economic Forum push for the fourth industrial revolution, which is transhumanism. That's the term they call it, transhumanism. But when you dig into that, you find that transhumanism was a rebranding from the British Eugenics Society. It's just eugenics called something else, which sounds nice and futuristic. And these guys are part of this. So when you know that transhumanism means depopulation, and you see the same guys, Sam Altman, Larry Ellison, all these guys that are part of the club that are working towards transhumanism, you have to get clear on what that really means. So I'm extremely concerned about the people. I think they're effective. I mean, I think that's the problem, is that Larry Ellison and Sam Altman and Elon Musk are very good at what they do, building these companies and taking these technologies and scaling them up and working on, and they're great at what they do. That's almost the problem of the Trump administration, is that he's got some really dangerous technocrats in there that have a vision of, let us help you run the government with this artificial intelligence. You don't need all these people at the IRS. You don't need you want to doge the United States and close out all these departments. Great, because it doesn't matter if those people are gone. We can use our AI to do the work of all those people you just got rid of. And then you go, oh, that sounds amazing. The problem is it centralizes the control into the hands of these people. And they have the discretion to make some rather large decisions in America in general, but I think in the world as a whole.
Well, speaking of the WEF, we had one of our former people we've covered in the past many times, Klaus Schwab, get replaced by this Nestle guy who likes to monopolize water supplies. What are your thoughts on that switcheroo?
I mean, it's straight out of Central Casting too. They have to make the guys look like preposterous Bond villains. It's just, I was going through this meme collection that I had on this computer I just turned back on, and there was a picture of Klaus Schwab dressed in like his big black, like Darth Vader, and it said, if only there was a way we could tell who the super crazy villains were, and I thought, exactly. And you see the Nestle guy, and the Nestle guy looks like a total freak, and he's the guy that thinks water is a privilege, and you go, let's not put that guy in charge of this. But this is where psychopathy is rewarded in these structures. They can move you straight up to the top of the pyramid because they know that it doesn't require much effort to control you. You're an uncontrollable psychopath in your own right. Just let him cook, like put him in there and let him do his thing. Like, whereas if they really needed to, they'd take, why compromise good people when you can just find these total deviants out there that are just as willing to participate in this. You don't even have to force them. So you see the Nestle guys, and it's unfortunately, I think that they're going to try and sell transhumanism through the World Economic Forum as this upgrade to humanity. Look at all the technological improvements we have with computers and phones and everything. Let's upgrade you into something transhuman. My fear, if you extrapolate out and look 40 years into the future, is that, at what point do you have so much hardware in your body, or mRNA technology from the shots and from whatever, that you become legally no longer just human? You become legally transhuman. And when you become legally transhuman, there go all of your rights. You're essentially a robot. It becomes like a subspecies legally. And so I'm very fearful of that, you become a genetically modified human being legally, where then they can own you, because in the same way they do seeds and things like that. So but the sales pitch is going to be awesome. It's going to be, guy loses his arm in a farming accident, gets a bionic arm, transhumanism, isn't it great? Or you get a brain chip and you never forget your wife's your wife's birthday or your anniversary or something like that. It's always going to be like amazing sales pitch. But you've just got to resist. You've just got to know that these are the wrong people to be selling it. These people are super dangerous, and they are, at their core, they're about eugenics.